This video will focus on how to do embedded citations within your paper as you are finalizing your essay. So essentially, the basic information that you need for a citation is the author's last name and the year of publication. So an example of that would look like this. If you were paraphrasing the information in your own words, you took what you read from the article and you were simply writing about it in your own words, then you would include the author's last name and the year of publication in the citation at the end of the sentence. It's important to note that the citation is part of your sentence, so the period or the closing punctuation goes after the citation. So that's the basic information that you need. Now it changes if you're using a direct quote. So if you are using exact words from the original article or text, then you have to include either the page or the paragraph number in your citation. So it would look like this. The author argues that it's not fair to euthanize bears for behavior that's our fault. This is a direct quote, exact wording that comes directly from the article. So we put it in quotation marks, and then we add to our citation the author's last name, the year, and then we add either a page or paragraph number so that whoever's reading our article can go find this quote if they want to look it up themselves. Now, paragraph number is typically used when you're getting your information from a website or a web page, right? Because information on the web doesn't have page numbers. You might print it out and something might show up on page 2 of your printout, but somebody else who prints it out might have a different printer or use a different size font, and then it's going to be on page 3 for them. So when it's web content, we actually count the number of paragraphs down the page and then use that number. So P-A-R-A period, and then the paragraph number where you found the quote. If you are using a journal or a printed article that was published in a magazine, then you would use the page number that's printed clearly on the page, as long as that page number is going to be the same for everyone who looks at the document. So that would look something like this. Okay, so it's the same sentence, but now we're using a P period in order to indicate that this is a page number, not a paragraph number. So we know that this one is coming from a web source and this one is coming from a printed journal. So that's the difference between using page and paragraph number. Whenever you are using a direct quote, which is 4 or more words in a row from the original text, you must use quotation marks and you must include either a paragraph number or a page number in your citation. Those are required. Now, there are some variations to this. Essentially, all you need is the author's last name, the year, and maybe the page or paragraph number. And that's pretty much all you need in order to do your citations. But there are variations depending on your source. So there's a way to do it with the author's last name as part of your sentence. And so I'm going to paste in a couple of examples of that. If you want to include the author's name in your sentence, then you only have to put the year in the citation. You can also put the year immediately following the author's last name, so it doesn't end up at the end of your sentence. It starts the sentence. So that's another possibility. And then if you do this and still use a direct quote, then you would just put the page or the paragraph number at the end. And note that for all of these examples, the period goes after the closing quotation mark or the closing parentheses because the citation is part of your sentence. There are also adaptations depending on the number of authors that your article has. Sometimes authors have no authors. Sometimes there are 3 or 4 or 10. So if you have two authors, then it looks like this. You use both authors with an ampersand in the middle. If you have more than two authors, then you use the first author and you use this Latin abbreviation, which just tells us that there are names that have been left out. So on your references page, you would list all of the names, but in your citation in the paper, you just use this abbreviation. And it does end with a period, and then you put your comma before the date. If there's no author at all, then what you do is use the first 2 or 3 words of the article title in quotation marks and capitalized, and then the year as usual. And then if there's no date on the article, then you use the author's last name as usual, but you use the abbreviation N period D period to show that there's no date on the article. If you leave it out entirely, it's just going to be wrong. It's going to look like you just left out the date. So you definitely need to put something in there to let your audience know that it's not an oversight, that there really is no date available on the article. And typically you would use that for like a web page, because in many cases there are not always dates provided on web content. And then I know I've said this several times, but I'm just going to put it on here in writing. Always remember that the citation is part of your sentence, so the period or the closing punctuation goes outside of that closing parentheses. So this basically covers the basics of citations, embedded citations within your text. If you have any other questions, please let me know.